Hi, so nearly 20 hours have passed since the last ball was bowled at Manchester in the fourth test between England and India, where India managed to grab a miraculous draw from the jaws of defeat against England. And the resulting overwhelming emotions, euphoria, and celebration of that fantastic fight back and rearguard action of India has now somehow stabilized and cooled down. So it's time for us to now, in a rational manner, look forward to the fifth test and see what are the challenges both the teams have and answer the question that which team is actually now going to have a little mental edge or a favorite stack going into the fifth test. Now the second question is easier to answer, and that answer is India is the team which would be having a little edge going into the fifth test. Now some people may be wondering how that's possible, but it is because England dominated the fourth test for almost 3 to 4 days. India was staring at defeat. India is still 1-2 down, and India is actually having the pressure to go and chase a victory in the fifth test to draw level the series. So in all these scenarios, how can India have the edge and why not England? The answer is simple. The fourth test was a hopeless test for India, and India should have lost that test and lost the series, and there should not have been anything left open to going into the fifth test. But that's where things changed in the last 2 days. It's the Indian batters who showed tremendous tenacity, doggedness, self-belief, and fight-back approach to play out 143 overs to deny England the chance to win the series there outright. In the process, they have frustrated England, and they have shown England what kind of mental toughness this team has, and a team of young inexperienced players under a new captain is actually showing England that they can fight with ball by ball against this English team and really can give a counter punch, and they can surprise and shock England in the fifth test. And this is what England would be scared of. This is what England would be jittery about, because they would be feeling as if there was any divine intervention which didn't allow them to win the test match after even reducing India to 0 for 2, which was effectively 0 for 3 with Rishabh Pant not being available. And from that point onwards, India managed to play 143 overs, just losing one more wicket. That now would give England a feeling that maybe they are not destined to win the series, or maybe there is something which is conspiring against them, and that kind of jitteriness, that kind of anxiety can be a big factor to pull you down on a big crunch test match in the fifth test. So looking at those factors, one can say that yes, India would have a little edge even though they are still trailing in the series. And one can also remember then this kind of tenacity and fight back which India had shown in 2021 at Sydney to draw a test match which they could have lost. And we all know what happened in the next test match, that was the decider test match, in the final test match at the fortress for Australia, that was Brisbane, where India managed to win a dramatic test match to win the series. So England would be aware of that record, India would be aware of that record definitely, and that would give India the edge going into the fifth test. Now let's get into the fifth test and think about the challenges both the teams have. It is more or less similar, but in case of India, it is more a case of team selection than actual players' performance, whereas in case of England, it is more about availability of players rather than team selection, because they have been pretty steady and pretty organized with their team selection. They are very decisive, they have been very clear in their mind about the kind of players they want to have in their team, and they have been given a role and responsibility, and those players have been trying to take that roles and responsibility and execute it, because that is their strong areas. But in case of India, there has been a lot of bizarreness or lack of clarity in terms of the team selection and the resources being put in the test matches, and that has affected Indian team to some extent. Though in one way they have also helped Indian team in terms of their batting, but their bowling balance has been completely ruined because of the bizarre team selection. And hopefully, if they can address those issues going into the fifth test, then those challenges can be overcome. Now let's come to the challenges that India has, which is beyond anybody's grasp or beyond anybody's control. That is the case of two players. One is Rishabh Pant, who is anyway ruled out, who is one of our most assured and most bankable batters in English conditions, who has been fabulous in the series, and who is a potential match winner who can change the complexion of a game in just 1 hour. And to lose such a player to injury is absolutely devastating, but we can't help it. Rishabh Pant has already been ruled out, and Jagadishan has been flown in as the replacement, though he would be a backup. Because everybody knows it will be Jurel who would straight away walk into the team as Pant's replacement, and Jurel has all the potential to be a able successor to Pant, so one should not be too much worried about the kind of potential Jurel has. But then Rishabh Pant's match winning ability would be definitely missed, because not every day you have a player who has that kind of ability to win a match on his own. So yes, Rishabh Pant's unavailability will be a big factor, but that is beyond anybody's control. So we have to accept that. Now the second big thing that would be really troubling India would be what to do about Bumrah. Bumrah factor would be a big factor. Whether to go ahead with the agreed norm of playing him just 3 tests, that means India would be going into the 5th test without the biggest match winner, and especially a team who is struggling with a depleted bowling attack without the kind of potential and the incisiveness which you expect to take 20 wickets. Now losing Bumrah would be a really big blow, because you can't afford to go into a decider test and then you want to take 20 wickets to win it, because it's a must-win game situation, and you cannot go there without your biggest match winner, that is Bumrah. But then the thing is that he has already played 3 tests, and he has already clearly indicated that he would only play 3 tests in this 5-test series. Now the question is, can he himself convince himself to play one more test as an exception and stretch his body and take a chance and try to give India a win which would share them the honours in this series with England? Or whether Shubman Gill as a captain or Gautam Gambhir as a coach can convince Bumrah to go for one more test, or will it be a big risk? Let's go about the positive things which can help push Bumrah to play this test. The fact is, it was expected that there will be only 4 days gap between the 4th and 5th test, so it would be impossible for Bumrah to play his 4th test match of the series with such little rest. But the positive thing is that India didn't have to bowl much in the 4th day, so that means almost last 2 days they got rest of the test. So that would mean that they would have got around 6 days of rest instead of just 4 days, because England had to bowl the major part of the 4th day and the entire 5th day. So that would be a positive factor which can tell that Bumrah can push himself to play this test match, because he has had just one innings to bowl, and there he bowled, but he bowled 33 overs, and that was in the first part of the test match. But in the last 2 days he bowled very little, so he can consider himself a little lucky that he has got a little added time to take rest, so he can take a chance and play. But there is a negative side to it also, that what would happen if the toll of the last 3 tests would finally have its bearing on the 4th test, and if he breaks down in the middle of the test, or if he has a physical fitness issue, or he cannot bowl, then India would be further depleted, because there would not be even a backup resource to take his place. So then India had to play with almost one bowler less, and when your biggest match winner is not playing, it's still okay, you can replace him. But if he's playing but he can't bowl, then that means you are having a double blow to your chances. So that would be a big risk. And also the bigger, even much bigger risk is that if he again picks up a career threatening injury the way he picked up at Sydney, then that would be devastating for India, not only to win that test match at Oval, but also for future engagement. So India has to take that call very carefully, and it's only Bumrah who can take that call, because he knows his body, and we will only come to know depending on how he feels and what kind of chance he wants to take. Now assuming that if he is not there, then we have to think about the challenges India has, because the agreed norm was that he was not supposed to play the 4th test of a series. So that means he was to play only 3 tests. So he has already played that. So let us assume which are the Indian bowling resources India would be having going into the 5th test. Now it is very clear you have Siraj, who is an assured pickup for the playing 11. Though as per the workload balance theory and principle, he should be the first one to get the rest, because he has been bowling non-stop in every format for India and even in the IPL for so many months, and he looks clearly a spent force in terms of physical fitness. I think somehow his mental toughness and his inherent body structure is allowing him to push himself and bowl non-stop, but he doesn't look fresh and fit, at least was not looking so towards the end of the English innings in the first innings of the Manchester Test. So you have to take a chance with Siraj because you don't have a chance, and if Bumrah is not there, he has to be your bowling, the leader in the bowling attack. So you have to play him. That means you are already playing with a player who is exhausted. So your biggest match winner is not playing. Your second best bowler would be going in with fatigue. Then your third and fourth seamers become very critical. In that case, you have to look at the option of playing Arshdeep Singh or Prasidh Krishna, because Anshul Kamboj is clearly not fitting into the squad right now. He was not impressive. So that means it would be Siraj, then Akashdeep, and your Prasidh Krishna would be bowling. Or if you can take a chance in the fifth test and hope Arshdeep Singh, who should have been actually tried out earlier, is now tried out, then you have to take a chance that yes, he can be your X factor because he can make the ball talk and swing, and he's a left-arm seamer, which would be something new for these English batters playing in the fifth test. But the flip side is that he has to get used to the English conditions, the English pitches, and the weather conditions, and the ground, and the Duke's ball, which gets so much soft after 20-25 overs. But then you should have tried him out earlier. You have not done, so you can always go with him. So that means you have to choose between Prasidh Krishna and Arshdeep Singh as your third seamer, and your first top two seamers should be clear. It would be Siraj and Akashdeep, and you hope that Akashdeep would be coming back after injury with the same fitness and the same kind of incisiveness and same kind of form that he showed in the second test. So yes, that is one area which is very topsy-turvy for India, because the resources are available, but because of the question mark over Bumrah, because of the fitness of Siraj, who has already overbowled throughout the series, your combination can look very dicey, and you can always be in a quandary about which three bowlers to pick. And regarding the fourth pace bowler, you can't have Nitish Kumar Reddy because he's injured and he's out. So you have to go with Shardul Thakur and hope he can give you a few overs and hopefully a couple of wickets. But if he can't, ideally you should have gone with Kuldeep, but now you can't go with Kuldeep because you have already two spinners who are now fixed because of their batting ability. So you cannot tinker with Washington Sundar and Jadeja, because they become your biggest two saviors in the last test at Manchester, and they are so solid in batting, and you are not confident of your number 9, 10 and 11 tail-enders to give you any runs. So you will go on with a batter only as a number 8 player. In that case, Shardul only is the only player left to play, because you cannot go with Kuldeep and three seamers who would be contributing very little with your bat. And knowing Gautam Gambhir and Shubman Gill, they cannot go with 4 genuine tail-enders, so they will definitely go with mostly Shardul Thakur. But then he weakens your bowling the same way where Jadeja and Washington Sundar have also weakened your spin bowling compared to Kuldeep, because they are not bowling the way Kuldeep could have bowled as a match-winning bowler to take wickets on a flat pitch in English condition with the spin. Jadeja has been disappointing, though he has been a great batter for you and saved a match and almost won a match in the third test. But he has not been the kind of bowler you expect as a front-line spinner. And Washington Sundar was impressive in the Lord's Test in the second innings, but has not been effective in the first innings, though he took 2 wickets. But you cannot bank him as a match-winning bowler over 2 innings if the pitch doesn't have much spin. So that's where Kuldeep could have been an asset, but now your hands are tied because you can only play 2 spinners. So Jadeja and Washington Sundar are going to play. You need a batter at number 8, so you will have to go with Shardul Thakur. You cannot drop him. That means Kuldeep would be out, and then you will have 3 seamers where Siraj and Akashdeep are assured, and if Bumrah is not there, you will have to go with either Prasidh Krishna or Arshdeep Singh. My personal call would be that they should try to take a chance with Arshdeep Singh, but then it can be dicey also if he doesn't get adjusted, if he can't adjust to the English condition, and if he starts becoming very expensive, then that would put pressure because there would be no Bumrah to control the momentum, and Siraj looks tired. So they may go with the safe option of Prasidh Krishna, but considering that they had not had trust on him and they went for a player whom they had called up as a backup like Anshul Kamboj, so it's possible that they may go with Arshdeep also in the 5th test. So more or less that looks the challenge, and that looks the potential seam lineup. So yes, it's the bowling lineup which has challenges, but they are more to do with what kind of resources team management takes rather than availability of resources. Of course, Bumrah would be a factor there. Now let's come to the English team. Again, it is their bowling resources which look dicey, and they are actually under much more pressure. They are almost like India, what India was before the fourth test, because India had all sorts of problems with their availability issues after the third test, with Akashdeep injured, Ashdeep injured, Nitish Kumar Reddy injured, and then there was also a question mark whether Bumrah should be played the fourth test or the fifth test. So India was in real turmoil and chaos after the third test, and that too after losing the third test and falling behind 1-2. The same thing is now with England, where India looks much more assured because India has at least all the resources available. They have to pick and choose the right ones. But England has issues about availability of resources, and everything has changed for worse for them after the scenario in Manchester where they were pushed to bowl in the last 2 days. So their bowlers didn't get any rest in the last 2 days. Then if they had got any rest, things could have been much more different because they could have become much more fresher coming to the fifth test. But now they have bowled 143 overs in the last 2 days and 257 overs in the entire test match. And that too, the bowling attack has not been tinkered much throughout the series. It is more or less a very stable and predictable and familiar bowling attack which has been unleashed in the fourth test. It has been Woakes, Stokes, and now even Archer has played 2 back-to-back tests. So now with these 3 bowlers, and Bryden Cars also has played 4 tests. So Bryden Cars, Woakes and Stokes have played all the tests and they have bowled extensively, and Archer has bowled 2 tests, but he has played 2 tests after coming back from injury after 4 years, and he is such a delicate player because he has carried so many injuries in his career. It would be very, very risky to stretch him and to push him to play 3 tests at a stretch, that too the last 2 tests being just apart by 4 days. So there is not much rest for him assured. And the biggest question is that Woakes is not a spring chicken. Archer is playing after 4 years and he has already overworked in the last test, where in the last innings he bowled 23 overs. He just has 3 to 4 days of rest. And then Woakes and Archer are not the only ones whose conditions are in trouble. Ben Stokes has had real fitness issues in the last test, and he has only bowled 11 overs in the second innings, even though he was by far the best bowler. If he would have been fit, he could have taken a chance and bowled many more overs to try to win the test match for them, but he could not take a chance because he was suffering from cramps, hamstring injury, and finally the shoulder injury, which was clearly affecting him. And if any of these injuries continue going into the fifth test, then he may be a doubtful starter for England in terms of bowling. He may still play as a specialist batter and captain, but his bowling may be restricted. In that case, England's trouble would be really manifold, because they would have to take a call on Archer whether it's time for him to rest so that they can preserve him for the most crucial Ashes test. What to do with Woakes, because he is getting into the mid-30s and he is no longer young and he has already overworked, and he's not looked incisive enough, also clearly looking fatigued in the last test match. And then there is question about Bryden Cars. He has already bowled in 4 tests, but more than his fitness and physical and health issues and freshness, the bigger issue is about his form. He has not been at all incisive or impressive in terms of his bowling capability and wicket taking capability, because he has shown a lot of weaknesses. He can't take wickets after 40 overs. That's what the statistics show, because he doesn't have the ability to make the ball move or seam with a softer ball after 40 overs. He has been very ordinary against the left-hand batters. So all these weaknesses have been exposed, and then he becomes a liability, because if he can't take wicket with a new ball or at least a newer ball, then his utility as a bowler is almost completely ruined. So you have a bowler who is ordinary, who needs a replacement. You have 2 bowlers who are looking tired and fatigued, and you have the 4th bowler in Ben Stokes, who is actually looking so injured and so much struggling with his fitness that he may not be able to even bowl a single ball. So in that scenario, the question comes how many replacements you can make and how many bowlers you can try out. And the worst thing is that your first choice replacement is Gus Atkinson, who is the must start player for the Ashes series, and also who could have started every test match in this series because he is a real assured starter. But then after that hamstring injury, he has been ruled out right from that Zimbabwe test, and he has not touched a international match, or he has not bowled a ball in international match for so many weeks now. And now to bring him back after a serious hamstring injury would be so crucial and so critical, because we all know that hamstring injury can be very deceptive. You can look fit, but the moment you start bowling seriously in a match situation, it can come back to haunt you, and then you will be ruled out of the entire test. Now the question is, if they want to replace one of the bowlers, especially Brydon Cars with Atkinson, then that would put England in much bigger risk, because if everything clicks, then that can be fabulous team selection. But if Atkinson comes back and he breaks down, and then considering the kind of known risks you would be taking with Archer and Stokes and Wokes, it would be a precarious situation if a couple of players really are they break down, or they can't bowl at their peak, or they become suddenly less effective because of physical fitness issues or injury issues. And then on a crucial fifth test, that can really be fatal for them, and India can punish them and win that test. So they have to take a call, and they don't have too many other options. Yes, they have Sam Cook, who has been looking very impressive with limited opportunity he has got, but can you risk a player like Sam Cook for the first time in the fifth test against a quality Indian batting lineup which is so high on confidence? That is a big question they have to answer. So England have a lot of questions for which they don't have answer. Even in the spinners department, they have a big dilemma, because when they were playing Shoaib Bashir, there were a lot of murmurs that they should have tried Liam Dawson, because he is a handy bat and he can be a really useful spinner. But then we have all seen that in the fifth day also, on a Manchester pitch which is comparatively a little friendlier for the spinners compared to any other pitch, including the Oval where the fifth test will be played, he was not able to take the advantage of bowling on a fifth day pitch to any extent. He was not able to hit the roughs as many times as he was expected to, where he could have created serious trouble for the two left-handers who batted for most part of the two sessions in the final day. And if he could have actually taken, if he had at least taken one of the left-handers out, the game would have opened up, and then the seamers could have come into the picture bowling to the right-handers and used the uneven bounce to take wickets. But then he failed, and he looked unimpressive, though he did what he was expected to do in the first innings, that is to do a containing job. So in the second innings, he again did the same thing, but that was not his role in the second innings. His role was to take wickets, no longer bowl economically and try to tie one end up. His role was to take wickets, because the softer ball was going to be a challenge for the seamers. But he failed there, and now that also makes him look like a liability for the fifth test for England, because then on whom Stokes would bank upon if any of his frontline seam bowlers or the top four seam bowlers break down. So then he cannot expect Liam Dawson, or he will not have the confidence that Liam Dawson can come and take a couple of wickets to give him that bonus wickets. At best, he can use him to contain. So in the spinners department, here is a challenge, or England team has a challenge, and in the seam department, they have big challenges. So it is England which is going to go into the final test with more question than answer compared to India, and that also is one reason why India would have a slight edge, because England would be going with a tired and exhausted bowling lineup. Now coming to the batting lineup, both the teams are now much more assured, and they are looking much more confident and comfortable, because they have been playing brilliantly throughout the series on most occasions. And India has shown that Rahul and Jaiswal are quality openers. Shubman Gill is now playing like Bradman, so there is no question about that. And then you have also Jadeja and Washington Sundar, who have shown that they can really frustrate English bowlers, which is looking average, and also with a softer ball when they come into bat, they can really play a big innings and frustrate the English bowlers, and they can score big. Whereas on the other side, England also has been looking pretty confident, especially after the fourth test, because coming into the fourth test, Crawley and Pope had some doubts hanging over their form, because they have been really ordinary but for one or two innings. And it was Dockett, Root and Stokes who have been brilliant. Jamie Smith has shown that he could give some depth, and Brydon Cars has shown that he can be such a handy lower under or tail ender batter to give more strength to their batting. And now with Liam Dawson coming in, it has looked much better. But then in the fourth test, even Crawley and Pope also clicked, and they've scored pretty impressive knocks, and that has almost completed all the missing pieces from their puzzle, and they are now England can feel really confident going into the fifth test with almost all their batters in good form except Brook, who has had just one good knock and he has been giving away his wicket pretty casually. But then he's the second best batter in the world, so England would be more or less not too much losing sleep over Brook. They would know that he will come good eventually. He's too good a player to miss out, and any which way there are other players who are taking care of their batting, so they would not be bothered too much about batting. Same with India, even though Pant's absence would be felt terribly, but then if Jural comes in, Jural can be a handy batter, and Sai Sudarshan has shown some good spark in the first innings. Rahul has been like the Rahul Dravid of the old Indian team. He has been a real wall, and Jaiswal, everybody knows what a destructive batter he can to change the momentum of a game. And then Shubman Gill is breaking records every test match every day with his Bradman type form. So India looks pretty confident with his batting, so is England. Ultimately it's the bowling attack which would be differentiator. If England bowling attack can one last time click in the fifth test and they don't break down, and they can go with their assured or their familiar bowling lineup which doesn't break down and do a fair job, then they can be right on top. But if India can find the right balance and the right team selection, India can really score heavily over England's exhausted and aged bowling lineup in the fifth test. We will find it out when the whole test starts on 31st. Till then, goodbye.